Jin stared out the spacecraft window as the blue-green planet Norvis grew larger. His heart beat fast in his chest. He was the first human ever chosen for the Galactic Academy exchange program. Approaching Norvis Central Spaceport, said a flat computer voice. "Please prepare for landing." Jin checked his safety belt and took a deep breath. 6 months ago, he was just a normal high school student in Seoul. Now he was about to become the only human in a school of thousands of aliens. The ship landed with a soft bump. Jin grabbed his small bag and walked to the exit. The air that hit his face was clean, but had a sweet smell he couldn't name. Gravity felt a bit lighter than Earth, making him feel bouncy with each step. A tall blue figure waited at the bottom of the ramp. It had 4 arms and silver eyes with no pupils. "Welcome to Norvis, human Jin," the alien said in perfect Korean. "I am Teacher Kyo, your guide to the academy." Jin bowed slightly. "Thank you for meeting me." Kyo's upper right hand made a gesture Jin didn't understand. "Follow me. The transport is waiting." They walked through the spaceport. Aliens of all shapes moved around them. Some had 6 legs. Others floated in the air. Many stopped to stare at Jin. "Is something wrong?" Jin asked Kyo. "They have never seen a human before," Kyo said. "Earth joined the Galactic Union only 3 years ago. Your species is new." Jin heard the pause. What Kyo meant was primitive or backward. Jin had studied enough about galactic politics to know how most advanced species saw humans. The transport was a round pod that hovered above the ground. Jin sat quietly as it flew over a city with tall, twisting buildings that seemed to grow from the ground rather than being built. "The Academy accepts the brightest students from 347 worlds," Kyo explained. "You are the first from Earth. This is quite an honor for your species." Jin nodded. "I will do my best to represent Earth well." Kyo's silver eyes studied Jin. "Understand that the Academy is challenging. Many students from Level 4 and Level 5 civilizations struggle to keep up." "What level is Earth?" Jin asked, though he already knew. "Your world is classified as Level 2, Kyo said. "Newly spacefaring. Still developing." The transport slowed as they approached a massive complex spread across a green valley. Buildings of different shapes formed patterns that made sense only from above. Some were tall towers. Others were flat domes. Some seemed to phase in and out of reality. "The Galactic Academy," Kyo announced, "home to the future leaders of the galaxy." The transport landed on a small pad. A group of aliens in formal robes waited for them. "Headmaster Du," Kyo said with a deep bow. The center alien stepped forward. It looked almost human except for the purple skin and eyes that blinked sideways. "So this is our human student," Headmaster Du said. His voice was deep and smooth. "Smaller than I expected." Jin stood straight. "Thank you for accepting me into your school, Headmaster." "We are required to accept qualified students from all member worlds," Du replied. "Even Level 2 ones. You have been assigned to special housing in Dome 7. Your unique physiology requires accommodations." Jin understood what that meant. They had put him in the section for students with special needs or disabilities. "Your classes begin tomorrow," Du continued. "I suggest you rest. You will find the academy challenging for someone of your background." The headmaster turned and walked away with most of the other aliens. Only one stayed behind. A younger blue alien like Kyo, but with lighter skin. "This is Ta," Kyo said. "Your roommate." Tae's 4 arms stayed stiff at his sides. "I will show you to our room." As they walked away, Jin heard Headmaster Du say to another teacher, "Watch the human carefully. Their kind can be unpredictable." Jin took another deep breath. This would be harder than he thought. But he hadn't come all this way to fail. He would show them what humans could do, even if it meant surprising an entire school of aliens. Jin woke to a soft beeping sound. The room was dark except for a blue light that grew slowly brighter. "Wake cycle initiated," said a computer voice. Academy Day begins in 30 minutes. Across the room, Tai was already up. All four of his arms moved quickly as he prepared for the day. Your uniform is in the wall unit, Ta said without looking at Jin. The bathroom adjusts for your species needs. Jin got up and found the silver-gray uniform in the wall. It fit perfectly. The bathroom was strange. The toilet and shower changed shape as he approached them. Smart materials, Tai explained when Jin returned. They read your biological data and adjust. Thank you, Jin said. Tai's silver eyes blinked. I did not design the systems. Thanks are not needed. He paused. We should go to breakfast. The dining hall was enormous. Hundreds of different aliens sat at round tables. Some ate solid food. Others breathed colored gases. Some didn't seem to eat at all. Level 2 nutritional station is there. Todd pointed to a small area in the corner. Jin got a tray of food that looked almost like Earth food but with strange colors. He looked for a place to sit. A voice called out, "You, human." Jin turned to see an alien with red scales and 6 eyes waving at him. I am Mei, the alien said. You can sit here. Jin sat down gratefully. Thank you. I'm Jin. I know, Mai said. Everyone knows. You are the first human here. Her voice was friendly. I am from Castor, also a level 3 world. Not many of us here. Before Jin could answer, a tall, thin alien approached their table. He had green skin and wore an expensive-looking version of the school uniform. So this is the monkey from Earth, the green alien said loudly. Many students turned to look. I'm human, Jin said calmly. My name is Jin. I am Mu, the green alien said. My father is the galactic ambassador to 7 systems. I'm surprised they let primitive species in here now. Mai looked down at her food. Jin tried to stay calm. The Academy accepts students based on test scores, Jin said, not their species. Wu laughed, a sound like breaking glass. A level 2 species trying to understand level 6 concepts. It will be amusing to watch you fail. He walked away, and many alien students laughed. Ignore Wu, Mai said quietly. He treats everyone badly. Jin's first class was advanced quantum mathematics. The classroom had no chairs. Students stood on platforms that floated at different heights. Teacher Han was a tall, thin alien with skin that changed colors as he spoke. Today we continue our study of 5th-dimensional probability waves, Han said. His eyes fell on Jin. Ah, the human. Do you have 5th-dimensional math on your world yet? No, sir, Jin admitted. But I study the basics from the materials sent to Earth. Han's skin turned a dark purple. Basics? There are no basics in this subject. It would be like teaching quantum physics to an insect. Several students laughed. But try to keep up if you can. The lesson began, and strange symbols filled the air around them. Jin struggled to understand. Earth's best math looked simple compared to this. During the break, Jin checked his schedule. Next was physical education with Teacher Jun. The gym was a massive room with sections of different gravity, temperature, and even atmosphere. Jin wore a special suit that would protect him in the alien environments. Today we test endurance, announced Teacher Jun, a muscular 4-armed alien. Each student will rotate through all 12 zones. Jin looked at the zones. Some had gravity that would crush him. Others had no air at all. The human will start in Zone 1, Jun said. The simplest zone. Wu and his friends laughed. Zone 1 was for the youngest students. The suit will help you breathe and move, Mai explained as she stood next to Jin. But it will still be hard. Jin nodded. I'll do my best. As Jin stepped toward Zone 1, he heard Wu say to his friends, Let's watch the monkey struggle. Jin took a deep breath. This was just the beginning of his challenges. Jin stepped into Zone 1 of the gym. The gravity was light, like Earth's moon. His protective suit hummed softly as it adjusted to help him breathe. Begin, Teacher Jun shouted. A course appeared with obstacles to jump over, crawl under, and climb through. Jin started moving. The light gravity made it easy to jump high over barriers. "Look at the human bounce around," laughed Wu from another zone. "Like a toy." Jin ignored him and finished the course quickly. Teacher Jun looked at his timer with all 4 eyes blinking. "Move to Zone 2, Jun ordered. Zone 2 had heavier gravity, like Earth's. Jin felt normal here and moved through the course easily. Many alien students struggled in this zone, their bodies built for different conditions. By Zone 6, Jin was tired but still moving well. Some aliens had already quit, their bodies unable to handle the changing conditions. Mai was doing well too, her flexible body adapting like Jin's. "The human is still going," one student whispered. Zone 9 had very heavy gravity. Jin's legs burned as he pushed through. His suit helped but couldn't do all the work. He gritted his teeth and kept moving. Wu was in the zone next to him, struggling now. In the final zone, Jin was one of only 5 students still going. The gravity shifted randomly from very light to very heavy. Many aliens couldn't adjust fast enough, but Jin's body and brain adapted quickly to each change. When Jin finished, Teacher Jun stared at him with surprise. "Human bodies are highly adaptable," Jun said. "Interesting." Wu glared at Jin. "Luck," he muttered. After cleaning up, Jin went to biology class. Teacher Song was a small round alien with green spots and 6 thin arms. She spoke in a high musical voice. "Today we study ecosystem balance," Song announced. "Each species will describe their homeworld's primary ecosystem regulation systems." When Jin's turn came, he explained Earth's carbon cycle, water cycle, and how different animals and plants kept each other in balance. "In Earth's oceans, tiny plankton produce most of our oxygen," Jin said. "And in forests, thousands of different species work together." Teacher Song's spots turned bright blue, a sign of surprise, Jin had learned. "Most Level 2 worlds have simple ecosystems," Song said, "but you described complex regulatory systems. Earth has many different ecosystems," Jin explained. "Deserts, oceans, forests, grasslands, and more. They all work differently." "Fascinating," Song said. "Perhaps Earth's classification needs review." Wu made a loud noise, or perhaps the human is exaggerating. Level 2 worlds rarely develop such complexity. "I have studied xenobiology for 200 years, Teacher Song said sharply. "I can recognize truth when I hear it." Jin felt a small victory. Someone at the academy was starting to see that humans weren't as primitive as they thought. At lunch, Mai sat with Jin again. "You did well in physical education," she said. "Nobody expected that." Jin smiled. "Humans are good at adapting. It's how we survived on Earth." "What is Earth like?" Mai asked. "We learn little about Level 2 worlds." Jin told her about Earth's mountains, oceans, cities, and animals. Mai listened with all 6 eyes wide. "It sounds beautiful," she said. "My world is mostly gas. We live on floating islands." As they talked, Jin noticed Ta sitting alone. Jin waved him over. "You want me to sit with you?" Tai asked, surprised. "Yes," Jin said. "We're roommates. We should be friends." Tai sat down awkwardly. "No one has called me friend here before." "Well, now you have 2 friends," Mai said. Tai's silver eyes blinked rapidly. "This is unexpected." After lunch, Jin checked his schedule. The next class was advanced chemistry. "Be careful," Ta warned. "We work with dangerous materials." Jin nodded. "I'll be careful." As they walked to class, Jin saw Headmaster Du watching him from a distance. The headmaster was talking to Teacher Jun and Teacher Song, looking at a datapad. They were discussing him. Jin stood taller. He was starting to show what humans could do. This was just the beginning. The chemistry lab was large and filled with strange equipment. Jin, Mai, and Ta found a station near the back of the room. Wu and his friends took the station next to them. "Today, we study reaction stabilization," Teacher Bach announced. He was a tall alien with skin that glowed slightly blue. "You will create controlled energy reactions using the materials at your stations." Jin looked at the materials. Some were familiar, containers of liquids and powders. Others were strange, glowing crystals and metal that seemed to move by itself. "Your protective suits will shield you from minor accidents," Bach continued. "But be careful. These materials can be dangerous if mixed incorrectly." Each team got a different set of instructions. Jin read theirs carefully. "We need to create a stable energy reaction that produces light but not too much heat," Jin told his team. Ta nodded. "I will measure the components." His 4 hands worked quickly with the measuring tools. Nai prepared the containment field. "On my world, we use similar reactions to power our floating cities." They worked well together. Jin mixed the chemicals while Tai measured and Mei monitored. Their solution began to glow a soft green. "Perfect," Ta said. "The reaction is stable." From the next station, they heard Wu boasting loudly. "A level 6 civilization understands chemistry at its deepest level," he said. "Watch how I increase the energy output without losing stability." Jin glanced over and noticed Wu adding too much of a glowing crystal to his mixture. "That doesn't look right," Jin whispered to Ta. Tai's silver eyes widened. "He's using too much zerethium. That's dangerous." Before they could say anything, Wu's container began to pulse with bright light. The high-pitched whine filled the air. "It's going to breach," Teacher Bach shouted. "Everyone out." Students rushed toward the doors. The container's glow grew brighter. Cracks appeared in its surface. Jin saw that Wu was frozen in fear. 2 other students had fallen in the rush to escape. Without thinking, Jin ran toward Wu's station. He grabbed a container of blue powder from his own table as he passed. "Jin, stop," Mei shouted. "It's going to explode." Jin reached Wu's station. The container was now shaking violently. Jin dumped the blue powder over it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the glowing slowed. The whining sound dropped to a low hum. "Add cooling gel," Jin shouted to Ta, who was still nearby. Ta grabbed a tube of clear gel and tossed it to Jin. Jin squeezed the gel around the container. The glow faded further. Teacher Bach rushed over. "How did you know to do that?" Jin helped the fallen students up. The reaction was creating too much energy. "On Earth, we use similar compounds. I remembered from our chemistry books that this blue powder absorbs energy." Wu stood shakily. His green skin had turned pale. You saved me." "I saved everyone," Jin corrected. That reaction could have hurt many students. The room was quiet. Everyone stared at Jin. Teacher Bach examined the now stable container. Quick thinking. Unorthodox method, but effective. Headmaster Du arrived at the doorway. "What happened here?" Bach explained the incident. The human prevented a serious accident. Du studied Jin with his sideways blinking eyes. Impressive reaction time. A survival instinct, no doubt. Jin knew this was not a compliment. Du was suggesting Jin acted on instinct like an animal, not intelligence. "I used what I learned on Earth and here," Jin said firmly. "It was not just instinct." Du's expression didn't change. "Return to your dormitories. Classes are canceled for the rest of the day while we clean this lab." As students filed out, many looked at Jin differently now. Some with surprise, some with curiosity, and some, like Wu, with confusion. That was brave, Mai told Jin as they walked back to the dorms. Or foolish, Tai added. But impressive. Back in their room, Ta sat on his bed and looked at Jin. "Why did you save Wu?" Tai asked. "He has been cruel to you." Jin shrugged. "On Earth, we help people in danger, even if we don't like them." "A strange concept," Ta said, "but perhaps not a primitive one." Jin smiled. For the first time, he felt he might be making progress at the academy. 3 days after the lab incident, Jin sat in the academy library. The library was huge, with data screens floating in the air and light beams that projected information directly into students' minds. Jin couldn't use the mind beams yet. He had to use a simple data pad to read information. He was researching Earth's place in the galaxy. "May I join you?" a voice asked. Jin looked up. Wu stood there, looking uncomfortable. "Sure," Jin said, surprised. Wu sat across from Jin. "I never thanked you properly." "For the lab." Jin nodded. "You're welcome. Why did you help me?" Wu asked. "I was not kind to you." "It was the right thing to do," Jin said simply. Wu seemed confused by this answer. "I've been thinking about what happened. You knew exactly what to do. That wasn't luck. Earth science isn't as advanced as yours," Jin admitted, "but we understand chemical reactions." Wu was quiet for a moment. "Perhaps level 2 doesn't mean what I thought." He got up and left. Jin went back to his research. Something bothered him about Earth's classification. Why was Earth considered so primitive when humans had achieved so much? Jin found a section about civilization levels. He read it carefully. Level 1, pre-spaceflight. Level 2, early spaceflight, limited interplanetary travel. Level 3, established in-system colonies. Level 4, beginning interstellar travel. Level 5, multiple star system presence. Level 6, galactic presence. Earth had colonies on Mars and the Moon. They had sent ships to other stars. By this definition, Earth should be at least level 3. Jin dug deeper. He found an old file about Earth's first contact with alien life, 200 years ago. The file was partly blocked, but he could read some parts. First contact with Earth resulted in miscommunication. Humans demonstrated unexpected aggression when approached. Unique danger potential. Recommend limited interaction and classification as level 2 until further assessment. Jin stared at the screen. Earth was deliberately classified as primitive. "Finding anything interesting?" May asked, sitting down next to him. Jin showed her what he found. Earth is being kept at level 2 on purpose. May's 6 eyes blinked rapidly. "That's unusual. Classifications are supposed to be based on facts." Ta joined them. "What are you talking about?" Jin explained his discovery. Ta looked troubled. "I heard something about this," Tai admitted. "My parent works in galactic classification. They said some worlds are rated lower for safety." "Safety from what?" Jin asked. "From them," Ta said quietly. "Some species develop in ways that are unpredictable." Jin thought about this. So Earth is seen as dangerous. "Think about what you did in the lab," Mai said. "Most species would have run away from danger. You ran toward it." Jin hadn't thought of it that way. Humans adapt quickly. We solve problems differently. "Exactly," Ta said. "Most species develop in predictable patterns. If humans don't." Jin accessed another file about human biology. It mentioned Earth's high gravity, diverse ecosystems, and rapid climate changes. Humans evolved in challenging conditions. Jin read. This created high adaptability, endurance, and problem-solving skills rarely seen in other species. Mai looked impressed. "No wonder you did well in physical education." Jin found another file, this one about the academy itself. He was surprised to see his own name. "The human student Jin will be monitored for security assessment," it said. "All unusual behaviors should be reported to Headmaster Du." Jin showed this to his friends. "They're watching you," Mai said. "Not as a student, but as a threat." "That's why you got a room in the special section," Tae realized, "so they could monitor you more closely." Jin felt angry. "I came here to learn, not to be studied like some dangerous animal." "What will you do?" Mai asked. Jin thought for a moment. "Continue to show them what humans can really do, not as threats, but as equals." As they left the library, none of them noticed a small camera following their movements. In his office, Headmaster Du watched the screen with concern. The human is discovering too much, he said to Teacher Han. This could complicate matters. Should we send him back to Earth? Han asked. No, Du decided. That might raise questions. We need to contain this situation differently. Du touched a button on his desk. Prepare the trial of minds. I think it's time our human student faced a proper challenge. The next morning, all students were called to the Great Hall. Jin sat with Mai and Tai near the back. The hall was filled with the sounds of different alien languages as everyone wondered what was happening. Headmaster Du walked onto the raised platform at the front. The room went quiet. Students of the Galactic Academy, Du began. It is time for our annual trial of minds. Excited whispers filled the room. Jin looked at Ta. What's the trial of minds? He asked quietly. A competition, Tai explained. Very important. Tests all abilities, physical, mental, problem-solving. Winners gain much respect. Du raised his hands for silence. This year, we have a special situation. For the first time, we have a student from Earth, a level 2 world. All eyes turned to Jin. He sat up straighter, feeling uncomfortable. To test the limits of different species, Du continued, I am allowing a direct challenge. Wu stood up from his seat in the front row. I, Wu, son of Ambassador Pak, challenged the human Jin to the trial of minds. The room erupted in surprised voices. Direct challenges were rare. Why is he doing this? Jin asked Ta. Mai leaned in. He lost face when you saved him. Now he needs to prove he's better than you. Du looked at Jin. Do you accept the challenge, human? Jin knew this was a trap. If he refused, he would look weak and afraid. If he accepted, he would likely lose to Wu, who had years of advanced training. But Jin thought of what he had learned about Earth's classification. This was a chance to show what humans could really do. Jin stood up. I accept the challenge. More excited talk filled the room. Jin heard students making bets on how quickly he would lose. The trial will take place in 7 days, Du announced. It will test all aspects of intelligence and ability. May the best mind win. As students left the hall, many stared at Jin. Some looked amused, others curious. You know Wu has been preparing for this his whole life, Ta said. His family has competed in the trial for generations. And the tests are designed for advanced species, Mai added, not level 2 minds. Then I'll have to work harder, Jin said firmly. Later that day, Jin was surprised when Teacher Song asked to speak with him after class. The trial is not fair to you, she said, her green spots turning a sad blue color. It was designed to showcase abilities that humans haven't developed yet. What kind of tests will there be? Jin asked. 5 challenges, Song explained. Mental calculation, physical adaptation, sensory perception, problem solving, and knowledge application. Each gets harder than the last. Jin nodded. I'm at a disadvantage in all of them. Yes, Song agreed. But she looked around to make sure they were alone. I believe Earth's classification is wrong. I've studied your planet's ecosystems. They're far too complex for a level 2 world. She handed Jin a small data chip. This contains information about all 5 challenges. It might help you prepare. Jin was surprised. Why are you helping me? Science should be about truth, Song said simply, not politics. That evening, Jin, Mai, and Ta met in a quiet corner of the Academy gardens to look at the data chip. This is valuable information, Ta said as they reviewed it. The trial changes every year, but the basic structure stays the same. I'll help you with the mental calculation part, Mai offered. My species is good with numbers. And I can help with sensory perception, Tai added. Jin felt grateful for his friends, but still worried. Even with help, Wu has every advantage. Not every advantage, Mai said. You have something he doesn't. What's that? Jin asked. You think differently, Mai explained. You solve problems in ways other species don't expect. Jin thought about this. Maybe being human wasn't a disadvantage after all. Maybe it was his greatest strength. In his room that night, Jin received a message from an unexpected source. It was from Wu. "Prepare well, human," it said. "I want to defeat you at your best, not your worst. That is the only victory worth having." Jin smiled. Challenge accepted. For the next 5 days, Jin worked harder than he ever had before. Each day followed the same pattern. Regular classes, then special training for the trial. In an empty classroom, Mei helped Jin with mental calculations. "Try again," Mai said. "Calculate the 6-dimensional volume of this shape." She showed him a strange object on a datapad. Jin's head hurt. Earth math didn't have 6 dimensions. He tried to picture the shape in his mind. "I can't think the way you do," Jin said after his 3rd failed attempt. Mei's 6 eyes blinked thoughtfully. "Then don't. Find your own way." Jin looked at the problem differently. He broke the shape into parts he could understand, then put the answers back together. "Is it 47,283?" he asked. Mei's eyes widened. "Yes. How did you do that?" "I couldn't see all 6 dimensions at once," Jin explained. "So I solved it piece by piece." "That's not how we're taught," Mai said. "But it works." Ta helped Jin with sensory training. They practiced in a special room that created different environments. "Focus," Tai instructed. "Feel the changes in the air." Jin closed his eyes. He felt tiny shifts in temperature, small air movements. "Something's moving to my left," Jin said. "And the air is getting colder near the door." "Good," Ta said. "Your senses are not as strong as other species, but you notice patterns quickly." Physical training was the hardest. Jin practiced moving through changing gravity, extreme temperatures, and strange terrains. His human body had limits that many alien students didn't have. After one difficult session, Jin lay on the floor, exhausted. "You should quit," a voice said. Jin looked up to see Teacher Han watching him. "The trial will be much harder than this," Han continued. "A level 2 species cannot compete with level 6. It's simple biology." Jin sat up. "Then why are you so worried about me trying?" Han's color darkened. "I am not worried. Just stating facts." "If it's so obvious I'll lose," Jin said, standing up. "Why is everyone working so hard to make sure I do?" Han had no answer for that. He walked away. Jin wasn't the only one preparing. Wu trained even harder. Jin sometimes saw him in the practice rooms late at night, pushing himself to his limits. One evening, Jin passed Headmaster Du's office and heard voices inside. He stopped to listen. "The human is preparing too well," Du was saying. "Teacher Song, you wouldn't know anything about that, would you?" "I teach all my students equally," Song replied calmly. "This trial must show the proper order of things," Du insisted. "Earth must understand its place." Jin walked away quietly. Now he understood. The trial wasn't just about him and Wu. It was about keeping Earth in its place. On the 6th day, Jin met with his friends in the garden. "Tomorrow is the trial," Mai said. "How do you feel?" "Ready," Jin said, though he wasn't sure if it was true. "I've learned as much as I can." "Wu has been telling everyone he will win easily," Tae reported. "Most students believe him." "Let them believe what they want," Jin said. "I'll show what humans can do." Later, Jin was surprised when Teacher Song asked to see him. "I wanted to wish you luck," she said. "Not everyone at the academy thinks like Headmaster Du." "Thank you for helping me," Jin said. Song's spots turned a warm orange color. "I studied thousands of species. The ones that accomplish the most are not always the strongest or smartest. They're the ones that never give up." That night, Jin couldn't sleep. He stood at the window, looking at the strange stars above Norvis. Somewhere out there was Earth, a planet that the galaxy had decided was primitive and unimportant. "Tomorrow," Jin whispered to himself, "they'll start to think differently." In his own room, Wu also looked at the stars. His green skin shimmered in the starlight. He had been raised to believe his species was superior to all others. But now, a small doubt had crept into his mind. What if he was wrong about humans? Across the academy, students placed their final bets on the trial. None bet on Jin. The odds were too long, the outcome too certain. Or so they thought. The day of the trial arrived. The entire academy gathered in the great arena, a massive space that could change its shape and environment. Students filled the seats around the central area. Teachers sat in a special section near Headmaster Du. Jin waited in a small room with the other competitors. There were 5 in total, 1 from each year level. Wu represented the final year, Jin the first year. The other 3 were experienced students from advanced worlds. Remember, Headmaster Du announced to the crowd, the trial tests all aspects of intelligence. Each challenge eliminates the lowest scoring competitor until only one remains. Jin took a deep breath. He saw Mai and Tai in the crowd, looking worried. Even Teacher Song seemed concerned. First challenge, mental calculation, Du announced. The arena floor changed to show a huge mathematical problem. It was unlike anything Jin had seen. Shapes and symbols that shifted and moved in complex patterns. Calculate the ratio of energy transfer in this system, Du instructed. The other competitors began working immediately. Wu's eyes moved rapidly over the problem. Jin froze for a moment, overwhelmed. Then he remembered Mai's advice. He didn't need to think like them. He could find his own way. Jin broke the problem into pieces. He couldn't understand all the symbols, but he could see patterns. He worked through each section, finding connections. When time ran out, each competitor submitted their answer. Jin was sure he was wrong. The scoreboard appeared in the air above them. Wu, 98% accuracy. Year 4 student, 95% accuracy. Year 3 student, 92% accuracy. Jin, 89% accuracy. Year 2 student, 87% accuracy. The crowd gasped. Jin had survived the first round. The Year 2 student left the arena, looking ashamed. Second challenge, sensory perception, Du announced. The arena filled with a thin mist. Strange sounds came from all directions. Identify the location and nature of each stimulus, Du instructed. Jin closed his eyes. He focused like Tai had taught him. His human senses were weaker than the aliens, but he had practiced finding patterns. Sound from behind, vibrating at low frequency. Jin said, pointing. Temperature changed to the right. Air movement from above. Jin identified 12 different stimuli. When the results appeared, he had missed 4. But the Year 3 student had missed 6 and was eliminated. Third challenge, physical adaptation, Du announced. The arena floor changed again. Different zones appeared with extreme conditions, high gravity, strange terrain, energy fields. Complete the course through all zones, Du instructed. The remaining 3 competitors began. Wu moved smoothly, his body perfectly adapted to each challenge. The Year 4 student was nearly as good. Jin struggled in the high-gravity zone, his human muscles straining. The crowd began to laugh. This was what they expected, the human failing. But Jin kept going. In the changing environment zone, where conditions shifted randomly, Jin's human adaptability gave him an advantage. While the others followed standard techniques, Jin improvised, finding new ways to move through the obstacles. Jin finished third, but close enough to continue. The Year 4 student made a critical error in the final zone and was eliminated. Only Jin and Wu remained. The crowd went silent. This was unexpected. Final challenge, problem solving. Du announced, looking troubled. You must escape from the labyrinth of logic. The arena transformed into a massive maze with shifting walls and puzzles at every turn. First to the center wins, Du said. Jin and Wu entered the labyrinth from opposite sides. Jin could hear the crowd above but couldn't see them. He was alone in the maze. Wu would know the standard approach, the logical path that advanced civilizations would teach. But Jin had learned that human thinking was different. At each puzzle, Jin found unusual solutions. Where Wu would analyze every possibility, Jin would see patterns and take shortcuts. Where Wu moved carefully, Jin took calculated risks. Jin heard the crowd react several times. Wu must be making good progress. Then Jin reached a section where the floor showed his position and Wu's. To his surprise, they were nearly tied, approaching the center from different directions. The final barrier was a complex energy puzzle that required balancing opposing forces. Jin saw Wu on the other side, working methodically. Jin looked at the puzzle differently. Instead of balancing the forces, he created a controlled instability, a cascading pattern that shouldn't work but did. Both Jin and Wu reached the center at almost the same moment. But Jin was first, by less than a second. The labyrinth disappeared. Jin and Wu stood in the center of the arena. The crowd was completely silent. A human had won the trial of minds. The silence in the arena lasted only seconds, but to Jin it felt like hours. Then, a single student began to clap. It was Mai. Ta joined her. Then teacher song. Soon, half the arena was applauding, while the other half sat in shocked silence. Headmaster Du's face showed clear disbelief. This was not how the trial was supposed to end. A level 2 species was not supposed to defeat a level 6. Jin looked at Wu, expecting anger. Instead, Wu held out his hand in the human gesture of handshake that he must have learned for this moment. You won fairly, Wu said as they shook hands. I did not believe it was possible. Neither did I, Jin admitted. Du approached with the winner's medal, a small disc that glowed with shifting colors. He placed it around Jin's neck with stiff movements. Congratulations, Du said formally. The Academy recognizes your unexpected victory. As Jin left the arena, students moved out of his way. Some looked afraid, others curious. None looked at him with the same dismissive eyes as before. Back in his room, Jin was surprised by a message on his datapad. It was from Earth's galactic representative. Jin, news of your victory is spreading across the galaxy. The Academy has agreed to review Earth's classification. A delegation is being sent to meet with you. Your success may change everything. Earth is proud. Jin smiled. This was what he had hoped for, a chance for Earth to be seen correctly. Later that evening, Jin met with Mai and Ta in the garden. You're famous now, Mai said happily. Everyone is talking about the human who won the trial. Some are scared, Ta added. They say if one untrained human can do this, what could many humans do? Jin frowned. I don't want people to fear humans. I want them to respect us. Fear and respect often look the same, Ta said wisely. The next day, Jin was called to Teacher Han's classroom. Han's color was subdued, less bright than usual. I have been studying Earth more carefully, Han admitted. Your planet has over 10,000 distinct ecosystems. Your species survived 5 major extinction events. You developed space travel in less than 100 years after your first powered flight. Han paused. These are not the achievements of a primitive species. We just think differently, Jin said. Not better, just different. Han nodded slowly. I will be adjusting my teaching methods. Perhaps there is something to learn from alternative approaches. Later that week, Jin was surprised when Headmaster Du requested a meeting with him. Du's office was filled with strange artifacts from many worlds. The Galactic Council has reviewed your performance, Du said formally. They were impressed. Earth's classification is being reconsidered. Thank you, Jin said. Do not thank me, Du replied. This was not my recommendation. Jin looked at him directly. Why did you work so hard to keep Earth classified as primitive? Du was quiet for a moment. Species develop in patterns, predictable patterns. Humans do not follow these patterns. What you call creativity, we call unpredictability. What you call persistence, we see as aggression. You fear us, Jin realized. With good reason, Du said. In less than 5,000 years, humans went from simple tools to space travel. Other species took 50,000 years for the same journey. What will humans be in another 5,000 years? Jin had no answer for that. A month later, a ship arrived from Earth with 5 more human students. Jin greeted them at the spaceport. "Is it true they're afraid of us?" asked Gil, one of the new students. "Some are," Jin admitted, "but that's changing. Fear can become respect, and respect can become friendship." As they walked through the academy grounds, other students watched them carefully. No one laughed. No one called them primitive. In the dining hall, Jin led the new humans to his regular table where Mi, Tai, and even Wu were waiting. "Welcome to the Galactic Academy," Wu said formally. "It won't be easy," Jin told the new humans, "but it will be worth it." That evening, Jin looked out at the strange stars above Norvis. Somewhere out there, Earth was being seen with new eyes, not as a primitive world to be ignored, but as a place of unexpected potential, a world to be respected, and perhaps a little feared.